everyone, welcome back to another Arrow Off Script video. In today's video, we are going to be reading some of the probably most crazy titles from Am I the A-hole Reddit I have ever seen. I am going to be very honest with you. So why don't we just get started and go right into this first Reddit post. Am I the a-hole for not helping my sister who became homeless just after she gave birth to her and my soon-to-be ex-husband's baby? First of all, wild title. Crazy title, even. Okay, let's dive into this. My sister, 24 female, and I, 26 female, were really close our whole lives, and we moved away from our parents together when she was 18 and I was 20. I met my soon-to-be ex-husband here, and we got married and my sister stayed close. We spent a lot of time together. Then, a few months ago, I learned my sister was pregnant and my husband was the father. I ended my marriage to him immediately and told my sister I wanted nothing more to do with her, and she was on her own. I had some of her stuff at my place and left it at my ex's place for her. For the rest of the pregnancy, they were living together, and then he wouldn't let her back in after the baby was born. She called our parents from the hospital and told them she had nowhere to go, that he was looking for custody and didn't want her back and wasn't answering her calls. So they called me after I heard them explain what was going on, and I told them it wasn't my problem. They tried to argue, but I wasn't having any of it. She got a place at a shelter for single parents, and she's still there several weeks on. With the custody dispute, she can't move back to our parents, and I'm still refusing to help her out. My parents are angry because I won't even take her calls or reply to any messages she sent. I actually blocked her because I knew she wouldn't stop. My parents don't know that part, but they're telling me I should be ashamed of myself for turning my back on her and the baby. I told my parents I owe her and the baby nothing. I told them it was just a shame she didn't choke on his dick when they were sleeping together behind my back. My parents called me disgusting for leaving them homeless, that I have a room and could help. Am I the a-hole? Oh my god, that's insane. Okay. Oh, it's really because you could play devil's advocate here. You really could, and you could be like on the parent side going, oh well, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is your sister. Like, come on, you should be supporting her. But like, at the same time, I'm with the original poster. Like, I'm with OP here. Like, I don't think you're the a-hole because, again, for one, she slept with your soon-to-be ex-husband, like, while you two were still together. Like, that is truly disrespectful. Like, it's one thing, I feel it's one thing if, like, your friend sleeps with your partner behind your back. I feel like it's one thing if a friend does that, but it's another when it's your partner choosing to sleep with your sibling. That's weird. That's freaking weird. That is disgusting, because that means there obviously had to be some sort of, like, connection between the two, because, like you said, you and your sister have been living together since, like, you yourself were 20, so it was, like, 6 years, and so obviously your soon-to-be ex-husband probably had some sort of, like, sexual connection to your sister then. Like, that leaves you to think, like, what are the things I missed, you know? Like, what were the signs? What were the cues? Were they fucking for way longer? Like, how long were they fucking for? I'm swearing a lot in this sequence. This is insane. But, like, it leaves that question of, like, how long has this been going on? Like, really? So, I wouldn't consider you the a-hole, but what I would recommend is that, like, you know, you take a little bit, you think it over, and if you're still angry, then all right, you have every right to be. I would be angry, but I would consider sitting and having a chat with your sister, just because, like, I feel your sister doesn't understand. Like, she might have the hint clue that it's like, oh well, I slept with my sister's partner, your soon-to-be ex-husband in this situation, but like, to me it doesn't feel like she understands the full extent. Like, to her it's like, oh well, you're my sister, we've always stuck together, like, come on, just help me out. But to you it's like, you betrayed me, you slept with my husband behind my back, and he's the father, and now he's seeing the repercussions because I am divorcing him, and he doesn't want anything to do with you. Like, that's insane. So honestly, I don't think you're the a-hole. I just think you need to sit down and have like a proper conversation about like how you're feeling, how this has affected you, because I feel your sister doesn't actually truly understand the length of what she has done. So yeah, I dubbed thee not the a-hole. All right, let's head on to the second post here. This one is a little bit of a long one, but it is a fresh one. Only 6 hours, folks. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter it's none of her business if I date, and I don't care if it's disrespectful to my late wife? I'm gonna start this off by saying that my parents are divorced. So I'm gonna come at this from a weird POV here. My wife passed away from terminal illness 5 years ago. Oh, okay. My daughter was 17 at the time, and it really affected her a lot, as she was really close to her mom. I struggled a lot for the next few years. I had a lot of really dark thoughts, which I also shared with my sister, as my sister and I are really close. My sister supported me through my grief, but also encouraged me to start going out because she did not like the dark thoughts I was having. I gradually started going out, and my sister encouraged me to start dating too, and said I grieved a lot and I do not deserve to grieve for the rest of my life. I went on a couple dates from dating apps, but I still had a lot of grief and just wasn't feeling it. Last year, my sister set me up with her childhood best friend Haley and said Haley has always had a crush on me. I've known Haley for years, but to be honest, I was shocked Haley was interested in me because she's gorgeous and has a really sweet personality. And I don't know what she saw in me. Haley and I started casually dating, but in just a couple of weeks, we realized there were really strong feelings, and we made our relationship official. Oh my god! It was the first time in a really long time I was feeling something other than grief. I was feeling happy and blissful. Haley moved into my house a couple months ago, and I'm still trying to take it slow, but Haley just has a lot of strong positive feelings for me, and I never felt like this ever in my life. Of course, now that I moved Haley into my house, I had to loop in my daughter and let her know that we were official. My daughter was obviously not happy at all, which I understand. When my daughter came over to my house for Thanksgiving and Christmas, she told me she did not like how Haley and I were all lovey-dovey with each other. I tried to be understanding, but my daughter just kept insisting on how it was disrespectful to her mom's memory. Last night, my daughter video called me and again talked about Haley and how our relationship was disrespectful to her mom, and how I was never lovey-dovey with mom like I am with Haley. I kind of reached my limit and snapped and told my daughter it's none of her business if I date. I also told her I don't care if it's disrespectful to my late wife, I'm allowed to move on. I sort of regretted what I said because my daughter just broke down in tears after that and hung up the call. I do feel guilty about it, but also I think my daughter can't control my life. She's an adult and doesn't live in my house anymore. Am I the a-hole? Oh my goodness. I'm gonna start with an immediate no. And I'm actually coming from this from like an IRL experience because one of my best friends, her father had passed away when she was really young. And her mom now has a partner, which is super great for her. And I totally agree, like you're allowed, like you've grieved. You've felt grief, and your sister was right. Like, you don't deserve to feel grief for the rest of your life. Like, you really don't, and nobody does. And honestly, I think it's more respectful towards your late wife's memory that you are allowing yourself to love again. You're allowing yourself to be happy again. Because, like, honestly, I'm pretty sure your late wife would want nothing more than for you to be happy. And I think your daughter just hasn't truly processed her grief. Like, that was her mom. So obviously it's really hard. Like, you lose a parent at any age, that's hard. You lose anyone who means a lot to you at any age, and that's quite difficult. So I feel she just hasn't truly processed that grief, and she doesn't understand that, like, you're a fully grown adult, she's a fully grown adult. You guys can make your own decisions. And if she's going to let the fact that you're now happy kind of affect the way that she's feeling, then that tells me that there's a lot more that needs to be talked about. Like, obviously, if her only excuse is this is disrespectful to mom, or like you're being mean to mom's memory, then there's something more. Because obviously, she's not giving you more of a reason why she's like upset or mad or whatnot. She's just giving you the same thing every time, which tells me that there has to be something more to it. So I don't consider you the a hole. I definitely do agree with you that like you snapping at her probably wasn't the best, but I also feel like you've been kind of taking the hits a lot from your daughter because like you said she came over for Christmas and Thanksgiving and told you she just didn't like the way that you guys were acting, which tells me that like she herself isn't allowing herself to be happy. I feel like obviously we don't know if your daughter's dating anyone or not, but it tells me that she isn't allowing herself to have happiness in her life and that she's kind of stuck in this grief. She's at like she's hitting a wall right now and she just doesn't know how to overcome it and allow herself to be happy again. So I don't consider you the a-hole at all, really. The other post I could have maybe considered that person the a-hole, but this one I really don't because like I feel for you. You've felt grief for how long? And it's been 5 years. Like grief has no time limit, it has no time stamp, and it has no minimum or maximum of how long you can grieve for. You can grieve for however long you need to, but there is a point where you need to sit there and go, okay, when am I going to take the reins of this horse and take hold of my life again? And you're just doing that. And that's something you should be proud of because it is really hard to go through grief. And you should be proud of yourself for allowing yourself to love again. So honestly, not the a-hole. This one is 5 hours ago. This one is also fresh. Oh, sorry guys, I'm just getting over illness. Anyway, am I the a-hole for telling my dad his grief doesn't get to dictate the name my wife and I choose for our children? Honestly, with just that name, I'm gonna say no, but we have to hear the whole story. My dad and I. Okay, so he's 28 male. Okay, I'm sorry, your dad's also 28? No. Okay, my dad and I have a complicated relationship. He was divorced from my mom when I was only a baby, and she died when I was very young. So she died when he was about 5, so she died 23 years ago. Um, he was already remarried and had another child when my mom passed away, and I think he expected with time that I would forget about my mom entirely and assimilate into his new family like they were the only one. There was also a big effort to ignore my grief and to expect me to move on like nothing had happened. The only time this was ever truly mentioned was when I was 13 and he sat me down and asked me to ask his wife if she'd adopt me. He told me she wanted to adopt me but didn't want me to get angry at her for asking because I still had a photo of my mom in my bedroom, and I talked about her still. During that little talk, he made a point of saying his wife had raised me far longer and had done everything a real mother should, so it was time for me to acknowledge her in that role and position in my life and make it official. When I said no, he threw a little tantrum, stomping his foot and pouting before he left the room, and he never mentioned it again, but that strain could be felt. His wife died 3.5 years ago. I was engaged to my wife at the time and we were planning our wedding. 6 months after her death, Dad asked how I could move forward with the wedding planning. I told him I still wanted to get married. He said he couldn't understand it and he thought the wedding would be delayed for years. I told him that wasn't happening. He never said anything about it again, but I know now he held it in. And now it has come to the surface again. My wife is pregnant with our first child, our daughter, and we have agreed to name her after my mom. My wife wanted a nature name, and my mom had a nature name, so it worked perfectly for us. We haven't announced this yet. During a family dinner with my side, one of, sorry, during a family dinner with my side one of sibling. That's a weird sentence. Anyway, one of my siblings asked if we had a name yet. I said maybe. We weren't saying for sure until she was here. My dad said we all know the baby will be named after his late wife and there's no point in hiding it. I told him he didn't know that at all. He lost his temper and told me if I had any respect for our family that that is exactly what I'd do. He told me he's grieving, my siblings are grieving, and I should take that into consideration. I told him that that has nothing to do with what we name our child. He wanted to talk one-on-one, and I agreed to do so. He told me if I'm hiding the name like that, then I must be naming my daughter after someone else, likely that woman, and how I was inconsiderate to consider such a thing when his wife had raised me and his wife had died in the last 4 years. He told me a good son would take this into consideration and honor that the woman his father loved, the woman who raised him as her very own. I told him his grief does not get to dictate the name my wife and I choose for our child. I told him my grief didn't seem to matter when I was 5, so why was I supposed to put his adult grief first now? I told him there was going to be no more talking about baby names because it was none of his business. He has since accused me of invalidating his grief and being insensitive to it. Am I the a-hole? Absolutely not. I'm sorry, I feel like all of these am I the a-holes, I'm going to say nobody's the a-hole, but like this one I definitely feel they're not. And the biggest reason is because, like he said, his grief didn't matter when he was 5. And the thing is his dad is disrespecting the OP's mom. Like, he's like, oh, that woman. Oh, yeah, your mom. Yeah, like he's being utterly disrespectful to the OP's mom, who passed away when he was only 5. And his dad is just expecting him to name his first daughter after his late wife. Like, I'm sorry, no. Like, buddy, you're not entitled to that. And it's not whether he's a good son or not, because guess what? That's his child, not yours. He's a grown adult. He gets to make that choice. And you're also a grown adult. If you're so big on grieving like this, buddy, go to therapy. Literally seek some help. Find someone you can talk to. Because guess what? Based off of this post, I don't think the OP's half-siblings care as much about what this child gets named. They're just happy for their half-brother who's having a family, who's starting a family, who's going to have a kid. And you as a father of the OP should be happy for him as well. If you can't feel any sort of happiness for your son, that tells me that you're holding a lot of resentment for the OP's mom and you're throwing it at your son, which is very unhealthy. You need, like, your father needs to take accountability for his actions, and I highly doubt he ever is going to. So honestly, I really don't think you're the a-hole, and I honestly don't think you're invalidating his grief or being insensitive, because you have a point. You weren't supported in your grief when you were 5 years old, and when you were 13 years old, you were literally like, you were asked like, hey, you should ask my wife over here to adopt you, you know? Like, she's raised you more, she's been your mom more, she did anything a real mom could. Girl, we can't control when people die. I'm sure for the first 5 years of OP's life, his mom raised him, like, super well. I'm sure of that. Like, we can't control when people pass away. So, not the a-hole. Let me know in the comments below if you actually disagree with me and why you disagree. And if you guys want more of these, or if you guys have some super interesting Am I the A-hole posts, send them my way. Like, literally feel free to send them my way. I will leave a professional email in the description below so that you guys can send me some of these posts. Or if you have your own personal posts, let me know and we can probably start a series and I'll leave like a Google Sheets thing or something for you guys to leave your own versions of Am I the A-hole, and we can read those out loud too. And with that, I hope you guys have an amazing day or night, wherever it is you are, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys!